In this video series, we'll delve into the biblical timeline of history. We aim to uncover the significance of important historical dates, such as the creation in 11,013 BC, the flood in 4990 BC, and even the date when God would bring judgment upon the house of God, the churches, as mentioned in 1 Peter 4:17. We'll also explore the date of Judgment Day, which is also alluded to in the same verse. And you might be wondering what the biblical timeline of history is and why it's important to learn. These dates weren't placed in the Bible arbitrarily. They serve a purpose beyond mere knowledge. God always has a reason for concealing truths within the Bible. These essential dates are not explicitly stated in verses, but require meticulous exploration through comparing Scripture with Scripture, the biblical method for revealing truth, mathematical analysis, and ultimately guidance from God's Holy Spirit. So what exactly is the biblical timeline of history? It's a timeline that spans across the Bible, beginning with the first book, Genesis. This timeline then extends into subsequent books and chapters. Why should we invest time in learning about the biblical timeline of history? The answer can be found in Ecclesiastes 8:5. Whoso keepeth the commandment shall feel no evil thing, and a wise man's heart discerneth both time and judgment. To comprehend the current time or season, understanding past biblical events is essential to understand when future events will occur that the Bible is prophesied about.
All right, welcome back everyone to another session, another episode of the Timeline of History. I got Brian with me right here. Let's see. There we go. This is going to be episode 9. We're going through the Kings, and this is part 4. And we'll just pick up where we started, where we last left off. Okay, so just a reminder, if you want to find the timeline, you go to ebiblefellowship.org. And there's actually a website change we made, so I may as well mention this now. On the right side, if you're on a desktop computer, Brian, can you hear me? All right, just want to make sure.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so we have the pages on the right side here, so it just makes it easier to find different pages on our website. However, yeah, so if you scroll down, you'll see the biblical timeline. It used to be at the bottom of the page, but we moved it right here. If you're on a mobile phone, it's going to be the same. So you want to click biblical timeline, and that will take you to our timeline page. And again, we left off at the Kings, so we're going to go down to the Kings, and you click this here to get to the Kings. Okay, and then there's I'll just go over a few changes we made, and then Brian, I don't know if you want to take over.
That's fine.
Okay, so yeah, if you see, we mentioned this before, if you see a red heart around the king, that means the Bible describes that king as having a wicked heart. If you see a green heart, that's a perfect heart. And then we added this, if you see a red heart but with a green border around it, it's a condition-based heart. So for example, King Solomon would have that because he appeared saved, but in reality, the Bible teaches he was unsaved. Okay, so we actually left off with, we were going through the kings of Judah, even though the first 3 kings are kings of Israel, like King Saul. And then King David, he reigned over Judah for 7 years, if you count a session. And then he co-reigned with King Solomon. Now you'll notice I changed the co-regency to a color red just because it stands out a little better. So if you see red, that indicates as a co-regency. And I did want to make a correction because I think last episode I said the co-regency began in 970, which in reality it actually began in 971, right? This is David's this is the first year where Solomon's co-reigning with King David and Solomon are co-reigning in 971. However, this year in 970, this would be the second year they're co-reigning, but it's Solomon's first full year or his accession year. So I think I just mixed the two up. So the reason why it's highlighted in a brighter red is because you would count. You go 973, 72, 71, and then you can drop over here to 970, 969. No need to double count the 971. And the reason why these are in red, but they're not as highlighted, it's because you don't count these, right? You would be double counting. But you do count this first year, even though it was a co-regency. Okay. So we went through a few of these kings. We left off with we got to Jehoshaphat. We left off with King Joram, also known as Jehoram. He's the fifth king of Israel, well, Judah, because these are kings of Judah. So I'm just going to mention this again. So this is the first king of Israel. There's no king of Judah at this period in time. It's just the kings of Israel. King David's the second king, but he reigns for 7 years in Judah.
Well,
And
just to
then the
be
rest-
clear, they are kings of Judah. They're kings of all 12 tribes of Judah. Whereas normally when we say the kings of Judah and the kings of Israel, it would be the 10 tribes of Israel versus the tribes of Benjamin and Judah. But in the case of Saul,
Okay, yeah,
David, and Solomon, they reigned over all 12 tribes, including Judah.
Yeah, thanks for correcting that. Yeah, so it's reigning over all of the tribes. Before that, they were divided. And then you have King Solomon. He's the third king of Israel. There's the image of a temple. So just to show that this was when he lays the foundation of the temple in his fourth year. And then as soon as we get to 931, this is when Solomon, this is when he died. And we mentioned that this date actually lines up with the secular evidence of when the Temple of Solomon was destroyed, 931. You can look it up online. So this is King Rehoboam's, this is the first king of Judah. So you'll notice the color changes. It's like a lighter purple. So this is when the kingdom split, and you have King Rehoboam, and then you have King Jeroboam, right? So you have them side by side. So we can kind of keep track of, on the left side, we got all the kings of Judah. On the right side, we got all the kings of Israel. And we can keep track of how they all line up. And then I'll mention that, again, if you see a yellow line above the king, it means that the Bible gives their total reign in accession years. So if you look at King Rehoboam, this is his first accession year, all the way down to his 17th accession year. The Bible doesn't give us, and Brian, can correct me if I'm wrong, he doesn't give us the 18th non-accession year, but we put it here just so you can see the difference between accession versus non-accession. Now,
Correct. All the kings of Judah, their total reign is given in accession years. And so the Bible says that Rehoboam reigned 17 years, but his 17th accession year would be equivalent to his 18th non-accession year.
Okay. And then you'll see on the right, you'll see King Jeroboam. He has the orange line above him. So this lets us know, okay, the Bible gives us the count for King Jeroboam and non-accession. And if you need your memory refreshed between the difference between accession versus non-accession, accession is you're not counting. So today's Sunday, right? And you want to count until next Sunday. I think we gave this imagery here. If today's Sunday and you want to count how many days until next Sunday, you don't start the count today, even if it's 1 a.m. in the morning, right? We typically start the count with Monday. So Monday's 1 day, 2 day, 2 days for Tuesday, 3 days for Wednesday, all the way until you get to Sunday, which is the seventh day. So that's the accession count. The non-accession count is you would count Sunday, and you could be halfway through Sunday, but you still count that as a count, right? Because you're technically still on Sunday, even though it may not be a full 24-hour period. It could be the very first hour of Sunday, or it could be the last. It could be 11 p.m. at night, right? And so you count that, and then you count Monday, Tuesday, and that actually ends up giving you 8 days. So it's a difference between 7 days or 8, depending on how you count. And that's exactly how the kings work. You can count starting the year they're anointed, even though it may not have been a full year that they were anointed, or you start to count with the full year that they're reigning. So this would be the first full year of King Saul, whereas this would be, we don't know when he started to reign there. So now that everyone's memory is refreshed, this is the difference. So the Bible gives King Rehoboam's count in a session and King Jeroboam in non-accession. And Brian, I don't know if you want to take over, but I'll open up this. If you click the king's name, you're going to see this little pop-up, and that's going to give us information about why we line up the kings where we do. So let me just zoom in here. Can you see that, Brian?
Yeah.
Oh.
Do you want me to read it?
Sure.
King Rehoboam was the first king of Judah post Solomon. So in this case, when we talk about this person was the such and such king of Judah or Israel, we're saying post Solomon. So if we say that King Rehoboam is the first king of Judah, or that King Jeroboam is the first king of Israel, we're not saying that he predates Saul. It's just within the confines of after the split. So he was the first king who reigned over only the 10 tribes of Israel. And so anyway, King Rehoboam was the first king of Judah. And this was when the kingdom was divided, and the kings of Israel ruled over 10 tribes, and the kings of Judah ruled over 2 tribes, namely Judah and Benjamin. And in 1 Kings 14:21, and Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, reigned in Judah. Rehoboam was 41 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which Jehovah did choose out of the tribes of Israel to put his name there. And his mother's name was Naamah, an Ammonitess. And in 2 Chronicles 12:13 we read, so King Rehoboam strengthened himself in Jerusalem and reigned, for Rehoboam was 41 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which Jehovah had chosen out of all the tribes of Israel to put his name there, and his mother's name was Naamah, an Ammonitess.
So I just wanted to point out this is why we put 17 years here, because it says he reigned 17 years. And we count a session. And can you also explain why it's a session with King Rehoboam versus, how we know God didn't give us non-accession?
Well, all the kings of Judah are given, their total reign is given in accession years. Whereas when you look at the kings all the kings of Judah are given in accession years. In terms of the total reigns of the kings of Judah, of Israel, the 10 tribes of Israel, the first 9 kings, their total reign is given in non-accession years, and the last 11, their total reign is given in accession years. So
I just zoomed out a bit so you can see the kings of Judah are on the left and the kings of Israel are on the right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to zoom out, it's not the timeline here is not complete. So
yeah.
Okay, so I think we read it through everything there. All right, so I'll go to Jeroboam.
Yeah, I actually want to address a question that we got last session, just really quickly. If I can share my screen.
Yeah.
I can't share my screen.
Oh, give me a second. Try that now.
So the question was, if you go to Luke 3:31, and Jesus himself began to be about 30 years of age, being as was supposed the son of Joseph, which was the son of Heli, which was the son of Mattat, which was the son of Levi. And this whole genealogy goes down to finally in verse 38, it goes, which was the son of Enos, which was the son of Seth, which was the son of Adam, which was the son of God. And if we go back and we look at the timeline, I'm going to read backwards, starting in verse 38. We go from God to Adam to Seth to Enos. And then in verse 37, we go to Canaan. So this Canaan is shown. And then Mahalaleel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah. And then in verse 36, we go to Lamech, to Noah, to Shem, to Arphaxad. What verse was I on? Verse 36. And then from Arphaxad, we go from Canaan, and then you'll see the last name in verse 35 is Salah. And so this second Canaan, which is listed the first name in verse 36, does not appear on the timeline. And so the question was, is this a proof that just because someone is a son doesn't necessarily mean it's immediate son? And the answer is yes. So the first Canaan was listed, but this second Canaan was not listed in the chronologies of Genesis 5 and 11. So that would be an example of where somebody is a son, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean an immediate son. Anyway,
You're saying so sometime between Arphaxad and Selah, or perhaps even at that mark, if you hit the yellow, right above Arphaxad, the yellow.
Yeah. So what happened is Canaan, he could have been Arphaxad's son, he could have been his grandson, his great-grandson, but there was a man named Canaan who was between Arphaxad and Selah.
But it's not, if you click the 438, it's not
Yes.
That mentions Selah, yeah. Okay.
But he wasn't listed in the chronologies of Genesis 5 and 11 because this Canaan that's missing here was not a timeline patriarch, even though this Canaan was a timeline patriarch. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify that. So thus far, this series has been based on the book Adam When, and it's not a strict commentary review, but we're moving forward to the perfect harmony of the numbers of the Hebrew kings, which I will henceforth refer to as perfect harmony. And the reason is because I can never remember the name. I am working off the fourth printing from 2008. So if I give any page numbers, it will be in reference to that edition. Now, one thing, if we look at perfect harmony, that I'm going to make a slight deviation from Mr. Camping.
Well, do you want to, before we do that, Brian, do you want to just finish with Jeroboam, just so we can...
Okay, we can finish with Jeroboam, sure.
Once we get down past those first few kings, then we could use the rest of the time to go over that.
All right.
Just to keep it organized. All right, so you read King Rehoboam. So here's Jeroboam. And in explaining the concurrent reigns.
Okay. King Jeroboam was the first king of Israel. And again, this is post Solomon, so we're not saying that he predated Saul. King Jeroboam was the first king of Israel. This is when the kingdom was divided, and the kings of Israel ruled over the 10 tribes, and the kings of Judah ruled over the 2 tribes, namely Judah and Benjamin. 1 Kings 14:20 reads, "And the days which Jeroboam reigned were 22 years, and he slept with his fathers, and Nadab his son reigned in his stead." And for proof that Rehoboam and Jeroboam were reigning at the same time.
I used co-reigning, but I meant to say concurrently reigning. They're not co-reigning, but
yes,
reigning. I got to change that word.
The difference between co-reigning and concurrently reigning is, if, for example, if you look at David and Solomon, they were both reigning at the same time over the same country. Whereas when you look at Jeroboam and Rehoboam, they reigned concurrently, meaning they reigned at the same time. But Rehoboam was king of only Judah and Benjamin, and Jeroboam was king of only the other 10 tribes. They did not reign over the same nation at the same time.
Can you see those verses?
Yeah, 1 Kings 11:10. And he commanded him concerning this thing that he should not go after. This is in reference to Solomon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he commanded him concerning this thing that he should not go after other gods, but kept not that which Jehovah commanded. Wherefore Jehovah said unto Solomon, for as much as this is done of thee, and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes which I have commanded thee, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee, and will give it to thy servant. Notwithstanding, in thy days I will not do it for David thy father's sake, but will rend it out of the hands of thy son. Howbeit, I will not rend away all the kingdom, but will give one tribe to thy son for David my servant's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, which I have chosen. And the man Jeroboam was a mighty man of valor. And Solomon, seeing the young man, he was industrious, he made him ruler over all the charge of the house of Joseph. And it came to pass at that time, when Jeroboam went out of Jerusalem, but the prophet Ahijah the Shilonite found him in the way, and he had clad himself with a new garment, and they two were alone in the field. And Ahijah caught the new garment that was on him and rent it in 12 pieces. And of course, it's not difficult to see the parallel between 12 pieces and 12 tribes. 1 Kings 11:31. And he said to Jeroboam, take thee 10 pieces, for thus saith Jehovah God of Israel, behold, I will rend the kingdom out of the hand of Solomon, and I will give 10 tribes to thee. But he shall have one tribe for my servant David's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, the city which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel. And for more complete information, read 1 Kings 12, 1-19. So basically, Rehoboam was king for 3 days, and then the people came to him and they said that their burden was heavy under Solomon, and they asked him to lighten it. And he said, come back in 3 days. And he said, I'm not going to lighten it, I'm going to make it heavier. And so the 10 tribes rebelled against him, and Jeroboam became king of the 10 tribes of Israel.
And then can you explain why Jeroboam, the non-accession count for Jeroboam?
Well, Mr. Camping just took all in the book Perfect Harmony. He took all these verses, many of which have seeming contradictions, and he put them together in a way. He created a series of charts that would allow all the verses to harmonize. And it just so happens that with the solution that God revealed to him, the all the reigns of the kings of Judah, their total reign is given in accession years. And as far as the kings of Israel are concerned, the first 9 kings, their total reign is given in non-accession years. And the last 11 kings, their total reign is given in accession years.
And I'll just share the screen so you can see. Wait a second. I just wanted to point out again, if you click Rehoboam, it says he reigned 17 years. So you'll notice it's the 17th accession year. It doesn't say 18, but that's if you count non-accession. And then as far as Jeroboam, click him. And the days which Jeroboam reigned were 20 and 20 years, which is 22 years. If you scroll down, you'll notice it's not 21, because that's counting an accession. Here it's 22. So God's given us his non-accession count. Great. Guess we'll move on to the next king. we went through King Abijam last time. I guess we could just read it real fast. It's not that long. You want to go ahead, Brian?
King Abijam was the second king of Judah. And in 1 Kings 15:1 we read, now in the 18th year of King Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, reigned Abijam over Judah. 3 years reigned he in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Mahakah, the daughter of Abshalom. And if you look at yeah, what was that verse again? In the
right here.
18th year of Jeroboam reigned Abijam. So if you look at Abijam and you scroll over, you'll see that he became king in the 18th non-accession year of Jeroboam.
So I'll zoom out so you can see that a little better. So this is the first non-accession year, right? This is the first year of his reign, 914.
Mm-hmm.
Is I think who's above him, Rehoboam. So this is Rehoboam's 17th accession year. You go over, it's his 18th non-accession. Okay. All right, and then I guess we'll go over to Nadab.
Nadab was the second king of Israel, and in 1 Kings 15:25, and Nadab the son of Jeroboam began to reign over Israel in the second year of Asa king of Judah, and he reigned over Israel 2 years. Now, what's interesting here is, as I said earlier, all of the total reigns of the kings of Judah are given in accession years. But when you look at it, it says that Nadab began to reign in Asa's second year. And when you do the side-by-side comparison, you'll see that the year that Nadab became king corresponds to Asa's second non-accession year.
So you're talking about 910, right? 910 BC.
910 BC or 10,103 EA. That's the year that Jeroboam, who was the first king of Israel, died. His son Nadab becomes the second king of Israel, and that corresponds to the second year, the second non-accession year of Asa's reign. So even though Asa's total reign of 41 years was given in accession years,
which is right
that
here,
doesn't necessarily mean that every reference to Asa's reign is given in accession years. So that's part of what makes the timeline so complicated, because God is constantly changing things up. And when you look at the timeline of the Hebrew Kings, I said this to Carl off air, it gets much more complicated here, for example, versus when you're looking at the timeline patriarchs. So when studying the timeline, this is kind of one of the places where we separate the boys from the men, or the girls from the women. So, and it says that Nadab reigned 2 years. And as I said, the first 9 kings of Israel, their total reign is given in non-accession years. So he reigned 2 non-accession years, which is 1 accession year.
Yeah. So again, I like to repeat stuff just because it's there's a lot of information here. So this is Nadab's first non-accession year, which is 910 BC, or the 10,103 year of Earth's history. You go over, you'll find it's in Asa's second non-accession year, but it's his first accession year. And God gives us the accession count for King Asa. You start with the first year down here, and you go to his 41st year. That's the accession count. However, when we read this verse, it says it was Asa's second year. So it had to be his non-accession second year. So that's like the curveball that we're being given. All right, guess we'll move on to King Asa.
Okay, so Asa was the third king of Judah. Now, I know Chris has made reference a number of times. You say Josiah was the last good king of Judah. Well, Asa was the first good king of Judah. He was the third overall king of Judah. Again, post Solomon. He was the third king of Judah, but he was the first good king. And in 1 Kings 15:8, we read, and Abijam, and that was Asa's father, the second king of Judah. And Abijam slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city of David. And Asa, his son, reigned in his stead. In the 20th year of Jeroboam, king of Israel, reigned Asa over Judah. And 40 and 1 years reigned he in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Maacah, the daughter of Absalom.
And I try to color code these things 40 and 1 year, so it's in yellow, so you know it's a session right here. 41 years. I think with Rehoboam, just refresh the page. Oh, not Rehoboam, Jeroboam. I did something similar.
Yeah, I sometimes get those two confused too.
Yeah, it's easy to do. You click Jeroboam, 2 and 20 years. It's color coded with orange, because God's given us his 22nd non-accession year. All right, and so we went through King Asa, so now we're going to go to Baasha. I think I'm pronouncing it
I thought it
correctly.
was Baasha. I'm not sure. Maybe
Baasha.
God can tell us how it's pronounced.
Yeah, maybe it's Baasha. Baasha. So he's the third king of Israel post Solomon, and you'll if you're wondering why his name is down here. Actually, I wonder why that happened. Oh, we're missing a year right here. It's there, it's just hidden. No, actually, but this is let me see if I can correct that real fast. It's right here. I'll just show it right here. So Baasha's first non-accession year is right here, and the reason why we have his name down here is because I can't fit it right over here because it's I think it's stackable, right? In this case, Brian.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not stackable.
What's that?
It's not stackable.
Oh, I thought it is because it's because on you have Jeroboam here, and then immediately you have Baasha.
Yeah,
But
well,
no,
if you're using the accession years, it would be stackable.
right. Okay. So yeah, non-accession. Yeah, you run into there. Well, I mean, you have 22 years, and then you have his first year. What did that be?
That would be the first accession year of Nadab, and then the following year would be the first accession year of Baasha.
Right. I see. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's why he's over to the side. Okay. Okay. Let's read Baasha.
So Baasha was the third king of Israel, and in 1 Kings 15:27 read, and Baasha the son of Ahijah of the house of Issachar conspired against him, and him that he was conspiring against was the second king of Israel. And Baasha the son of Ahijah of the house of Issachar conspired against him, and Baasha smote him at Gibbethon, which belonged to the Philistines, for Nadab and all Israel laid siege to Gibbethon. Even in the 3rd year of Asa king of Judah did Baasha slay him and reigned in his stead. So that happened several times over the course of Israel, where Jeroboam took 10 of the 12 tribes away from Rehoboam, and he died, and his son becomes king. And this guy Baasha rebels against him. He kills all of Rehoboam's descendants, including Nadab, and then he becomes king in their place.
Yeah, and this just needs to be pushed up one block, this empty space. But
yeah, it does.
But just so you can see, let's see, King Asa. Nope, this is the wrong one. Baasha. So the 3rd year of Asa, king of Judah. So he begins to reign. Baasha begins to reign right here, which is 909.
Yeah.
This is the year. It's 909, but it lines up right here. So it's King Asa's 3rd non-accession year, right?
Yes, and again, it's his 3rd non-accession year, even though his total reign of 41 years is given in accession years. So just because their total reign is given in accession years, doesn't mean that every reference to their reign is given in accession years.
Yeah. So really, a way you could read this would be even in the 3rd year of Asa, king of Judah, even in the 3rd non-accession year of Asa, king of Judah. Right. Of course,
Did-
God doesn't.
Yeah.
God
Did
is not
Baasha
that.
slay Nadab, who was the second king of Israel,
Right.
and reigned in his stead?
Right. God doesn't tell us accession or non-accession, but through careful study, we find he's talking about the third non-accession year. Whereas when he's speaking of King Asa's total rule in 41 years, and he reigned 41 accession years. Yeah. Well, that's probably as far as we're going to go on the kings. We did get down to Joram, but I'll let Brian take over from here. He's got some other notes to share.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm looking at the 2008 edition of Perfect Harmony. And let me share my screen here. So I said I'm going to diverge a little bit from Mr. Camping. So here on page 64, Mr. Camping gives a list of the kings of Judah on the left and the kings of Israel on the right. Now, as you see here, Jeroboam, we just read, Nadab, then Baasha kills Nadab and all the sons of Jeroboam, and he becomes king, and Baasha, and these years that are given, the starting year is their first non-accession year. So 931 is the first non-accession year of Jeroboam and of Rehoboam. And Camping doesn't give these guys numbers, but I do. So Nadab was the second king, Baasha was the third king. Baasha dies, and his son Elah becomes king. And then Zimri rebels against these line of kings, and he kills Elah and all of Baasha's descendants, and he reigns on the throne of Israel for 7 days. And then you can see Tibni and Omri both start in 885, and Mr. Camping lists him first, or I guess I should say sixth, and he lists Omri seventh. I'm going to switch the order of those. And the reason I'm going to do that is, so here, Zimri kills all of Baasha's descendants, including Elah, and becomes king for 7 days. And if we read, let's scroll that over a little bit. First Kings 16, starting in verse 15. In the 27th year of Asa, king of Judah, did Zimri reign 7 years in Tirzah, and all the people were encamped against Gibbethon, which belonged to the Philistines. And all the people that were encamped heard Zimri, heard say, Zimri hath conspired against him, and hath also slain the king. Wherefore all Israel made Omri the captain of the host, king over Israel that day in the camp. And the word day is the word yom, which is the typical word for day. And Omri went up to Gibbethon, and all Israel with him, and they besieged Tirzah. And it came to pass, when Zimri saw that the city was taken, he went into the place of the king's house and burnt the king's house over him with fire and died. And verse 20, now the rest of the acts of Zimri and his treason that he wrought, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? And then verse 21, but then were the people of Israel divided into 2 parts. Half the people followed Tibni, the son of Ginath, to make him king, and half followed Omri. But the people that followed Omri prevailed against the people that followed Tibni, the son of Ginath. So Tibni died and Omri reigned. So we can see here that Zimri rebelled against Elah and killed him, and he reigned 7 days. And then they made Omri king, and Zimri was killed. And then later we see Tibni also wanted to be king. So there was a period of time where Omri reigned over part of Israel, and Tibni reigned over part of Israel, and this would have been concurrent with Asa's reign in Judah. And going back here, even though in the text we read that Omri comes first, Tibni is listed first here. And I think the reason that Camping did that, he doesn't say why, it's because these two forces fight. Omri beats him, and then Omri becomes the sole king of all of Israel. And then when Omri dies, his son Ahab becomes the next king. So Camping lists him sixth, whereas I would say, to be more accurate, Omri was king first, then Tibni was king simultaneously with him. He beat him, Omri becomes sole king, and then Ahab becomes the sole king of Israel. So I differ slightly with Mr. Camping on that. And why does this matter? Well, first of all, it comes from the Bible. But one thing that's interesting is if you go back and you look at this king's list, for example, Chris has often made note of the fact that Josiah, who was the last good king of Judah, died at the age of 39 years old. And that's true. But what's also true is we talk about 43 kings of Israel, and the last king of Israel stopped being king in 709 BC when Assyria destroyed the 10 tribes to the north. And we can see that Josiah does not become king till the year 640 BC. And so all 20 of these kings of Israel reigned before before Josiah became king of Judah. And he's the 16th king of Judah. He's the last good king of Judah. And if we take he's the 16th king, and if we add these 20 kings of Israel that were king before him, 16 and 20 adds up to 36. And then if you take Saul, David, and Solomon, who also preceded him, you take 36 and you add 3, it becomes 39. So not only was he 39 years old when he died, but he was also the 39th king to reign over either Israel or Judah. And as one of the callers pointed out a couple of sessions ago, during when David was only king of Judah after Saul had died, Abner the son of Ner caused Ishbosheth the son of Saul to be king. And he isn't counted among the 43 kings, but if you count him, then the 39 becomes 40. And I just thought that was a very, just an interesting thing to note. So Josiah died at the age of 39, but he was also the 39th king, or if you want to count Ishbosheth, he would be the 40th king. So I just thought that was incredibly interesting. Anyway, of all the camping books that I have personally read, Perfect Harmony is the most dense. It may be true that there are other books which contain more information overall because they're longer, but page for page, I've found that Perfect Harmony requires more study, more reading than any other book that I've personally read, and I haven't necessarily read them all. But Mr. Camping himself alludes to the idea of Perfect Harmony being a sequel to Adam When, and Mr. Camping was very concerned with how critics, particularly those who call themselves Christian, question the infallibility of God's word, the Bible. And so I'm going to read a quick excerpt from pages 1 and 2. A book which sets forth an exact chronology of all the kings who reigned over Judah and Israel is not one the average student of the Bible will find to be exciting reading. Who is really interested in which years Asa reigned over Judah or the time frame of Ahab's reign over Israel? Thus, it would appear that such a book has little to offer the reader and therefore is of insignificant importance. In actuality, however, a book detailing with great accuracy the reigns of the kings of Judah and Israel is of great importance. This is so because there is probably no other body of biblical citations that has done more to seem to invalidate the authority of the Bible than those pertaining to the duration of the reigns of these kings. And I'm going to skip several paragraphs. In any case, these apparent errors associated with the numbers of the Bible are very obvious, and therefore they conclude that they cannot trust any numbers of the Bible. This conclusion concerning the apparent inaccuracies of the numbers of the Bibles destroy the authority of the Bible, of the whole Bible. If the ancient copies from which we obtain our present Bible are inaccurate insofar as the numbers of the Bible are concerned, then how can they be trusted concerning any part of the Bible? After all, numbers are words, and the whole Bible consists of words. If some words of the Bible are not to be trusted, then how can we trust the words of the Bible? We thus can understand why so many Bible scholars do not trust the Bible. They like what they read when it pleases them, but a passage that does not please them can easily be set aside if their minds as having no binding authority. Now, Camping goes on, but the point is clear. We read in 2 Samuel 12, verses 13 and 14, and I can bring that up. And David said unto Nathan, I have sinned against Jehovah. And Nathan said unto David, Jehovah also hath put away thy sin, thou shalt not die. Howbeit, because of this deed, thou hast given great occasion to the enemies of Jehovah to blaspheme. The child that is born unto thee shall surely die. So,
Hey, real fast, Frank. I don't mean to interrupt. If since we only have 10 minutes left, if anyone in the meantime, while Brian's discussing this, if they have a question about the timeline, if you could raise your hand in advance, that way
okay.
we're prepared. But you can go ahead.
Okay. But anyway, the point is, just as David sitting gave critics in their own mind chance to blaspheme the Bible, so too Mr. Camping believed that because the true believers could not put forth an accuracy chronology of the kings, that gave Bible critics in their minds a cudgel to which to question the absolute authority of the Bible. And Mr. Camping notes several seemingly insurmountable apparent contradictions. The first is in 2 Kings 9:29, and we've gone over this, but I'll read it again very quickly. In the 11th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, began Ahaziah to reign over Judah. So in here it says the 11th year of Joram, and if you compare that with 2 Kings 8:25, in the 12th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, did Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, begin to reign. So in the one verse it says 11th year, in another verse it says 12th year. We've already discussed this. It's his 11th accession year, which is the equivalent of his 12th accession year. Now, another example of an apparent contradiction we read of in 2 Kings 24:8. Oh, I'm sorry, in verse 18. That's why it doesn't match. Second Kings 24:8 reads, Jehoiachin was 8 years old. Remember that, 8 years old. Jehoiachin was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months. And his mother's name was Netshua, the daughter of Elathan of Jerusalem. So here he's 8 years old, Jehoiachin was when he began to reign. But if we compare that to Second Chronicles 36:9, we read, Jehoiah was 8 years old. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, here he was 18. Jehoiachin was 18 years old. And then in Second Chronicles 36:9, Jehoiachin was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem, and he did that which was evil in the sight of Jehovah. So in the one account, it says he was 8 years old, and in the other account, it says he was 18 years old. So we reconcile this, and reconciliation is actually relatively simple. And we go down, we'll look at Jehoiachin. Jehoiachin was 8 when he became co-regent with his father, Jehoiakim. And then 10 years later, when he was 18, his father was no longer king, and he became the sole regent at the age of 18. So he was 8 when he became co-regent and 18 when he became the sole ruler, and he reigned for 3 months or 3 months and 10 days. So another example, if we look at 2 Kings 8:26, we read, 22 years old was Ahaziah when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Athaliah, the daughter of Omri, king of Israel. So here, Ahaziah was 22 when he began to reign. But if we compare this with 2 Chronicles 22:2, we read, 42 years old was Ahaziah when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. His mother's name was also Athaliah, the daughter of Omri. So if you're like me, you think, oh, okay, I know this. So he was 22 when he became co-regent with his father, and he was 42 when he became the sole king. Well, if you're a child of the 90s in the United States like me, you may be familiar with the expression, silly rabbit, tricks are for kids. If you're not familiar with that expression, that is not the correct answer. And it's actually, the solution is he was, in fact, 22 years old when he became king. However, so here, Ahaziah was 22 years when he became king. So he was born in this year. So how was he also 42 years? Well, it's not a reference to his age, but rather to his dynasty. So Ahaziah was the son of Joram, the king of Judah, but his mother, Athaliah, was the daughter of either Ahab or Omri, depending on which verses you read. But he was also descendant of Omri, who was the then current line of reigning kings of Israel. And so 42 years before, so this is the year he became king. So 22 years earlier is when he was born. 42 years earlier is when his grandfather or his great grandfather, Omri, his first accession year of king of Israel. And you might say, but Ahaziah was king of Judah. Yes, he was king of Judah. He was never king of Israel. But his reign as a descendant of the king of Omri, king of Israel, was 42 years old. So that's a bit complicated, but those are some examples of why it was so tough to make sense of these seeming contradictions. And I guess if there's any questions.
All right. Well, does anyone have any questions? Oh, we got one question. Got a few minutes. All right. Question about the timeline,
Okay.
not like a Bible question.
Yeah. Hello?
Hi, how you doing, Louisa?
Okay. You mentioned Jehoiachin. How many Jehoiachin is he? Judah, king of Judah.
Jehoiachin was the 19th king of Judah.
Okay, because how many? Because from chapter 23 of Second Kings, I had a Jehoiachin. Is that the same Jehoiachin?
Well, a lot of these kings sound similar, so I'm not sure. For example, his father's, a lot of these kings have multiple names. For example, his father, the 18th king of Judah, was Jehoiakim, also known as Eliakim, whereas the son, the 19th king of Judah, was Jehoiachin, also known as
Okay.
Jeconiah, also known as Coniah.
Okay, Jehoiachin, did you mention his mother was Nehushta?
Did I mention whose mother?
Jehoiachin's mother.
If that's what the Bible verse said, I don't know off the top of my head.
If it's the same Jehoiachin, it says Jehoiakim and
Is there a specific verse you wanted to look at?
Excuse me?
Is there a specific verse you wanted to look at?
No, I just got the I'm looking for my the chart that I drew years ago. I had chapter 23, but it seems like Jehoiakim was his dad, and Nehushta was his mother.
I don't necessarily remember all the names of the mothers of the kings off the top of my head, but I mean, like I said, if there's a specific verse you want to look at.
Oh, okay, maybe. Well, I'll try to find it. Now I have the 931 BC. Is that the year that King Saul died?
That's the year King Solomon died and the kingdom was divided.
Okay, because I wrote something like 360th year, somebody 360th year. That person died in 931 BC, but you said it's Solomon.
Solomon died in 931 BC, and that was the first non-accession year of both Jeroboam of Israel and Rehoboam of Judah.
Mm-hmm. And then also chapter 22, the King Jehoram.
Chapter 22 of what book?
First Kings. King Jehoram.
Hold on one second. First Kings 22, and what verse?
I'm sorry, I don't have the verse here, but I got King Jehoram.
Well, we'll go to the next. We'll go to the next person.
In Jerusalem, in Judah, Jerusalem, and opposite was Jehoram also. Joram.
Yeah, King Joram
The same
is also
name.
Joram. You can see here on
but not the same person, right?
No, it's the same person. King
The same person.
Jehoram is also
Okay.
Joram. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Okay.
And what makes it more complicated is there was both a King Joram / Jehoram of Judah reigning simultaneously with a King Joram / Jehoram of Israel, but they're two separate people.
Yeah. All right. Bob has a question.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Sure.
I can hear you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, this is great. Can you go back up to where you were talking about Baasha?
Right here.
Yeah. Okay, so you already fixed you already moved up the
I
timeline.
fixed it. Yep.
There was also a verse where you had the yeah. So yeah, that where you have First Kings 15:28. So
Mhm.
that should be highlighted orange now, right?
Even in the third year of Asa. Well, this is the third year of Asa, which is, yeah, you're right. You're right about that. Yeah, this is his non-accession year. Yeah,
Okay.
his
That's
third
yeah,
non-accession.
that's
Yeah.
all I wanted to show.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for pointing
Thank
that
you.
out. You're welcome. Also want to remind people that if you want to access Brian's document, I actually put it up on the website. So if you go to just the regular biblical timeline page, not the King's timeline, you'll see right here Excel doc, and it's actually embedded into the website. So it has all the tabs. If you go to the King's list, you'll see, actually, no, it's King's, right? You'll see his timeline here. So you can also go through this. But we're basically putting all this data on this timeline as much as possible. So if you're a numbers guy and you like data laid out, then this is for you. And if you prefer visuals like this or both, then you have this option too. All right. Well, it's already 9:06, so if no one else has any questions about the timeline, then we can wrap it up. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us. Hopefully, I think by next episode we should have, I don't know, maybe 1 to 2 more episodes. We should be done with the Kings, and then we're gonna. This is when the timeline gets pretty interesting because we'll go through different time paths that get us further on the timeline. So there'll be time paths that get us to Christ, to the church age, the birth of Christ, things like that. When Babylon is the actual city of Babylon falls, all the way up until like 1994 in those dates. So, and then we'll be done. We'll be done with going over most of the timeline. So, all right. Well, thanks again, everyone, for joining, and I hope you have a blessed remainder of your Sabbath. Take care.